Welcome back, Synchronauts. So in the last video I posted, I was demonstrating a message lister reader in JavaScript that I've been working on for the terminal server for the Synchronet traditional BBS interface. And one of its features was that it would decode MIME-encoded message headers, particularly for internet email. And it would also translate from UTF-8 to ASCII or code page 437 if depending on the capabilities of the terminal. So I noticed that I would still get like email notifications, let's say kind of like this, where you get like a new email from, and then it would be that MIME encoded like base64 or quoted printable text. It wouldn't be readable like this. You wouldn't see Frida, you'd see a bunch of what looks like garbage. And that's coming from the mail server directly, and that was kind of frustrating. So then I put normalization in the mail server, because although the internet standards, the RFC, specify that you shouldn't unnecessarily encode these things, like if it's just straight ASCII, us-ascii, there's no need to encode it. A lot of mail programs now will, whether it's mass mailers or spammers or whatever. It's just they're encoding everything. So you just can't take the raw ASCII text and print it to the user and expect them to be able to read it. So anyway, so I put that in the mail server. So at least if it's us-ascii, it'll translate it into human readable text right there. Same for subjects and any of the other header fields that are supposed to be displayed to a user. So that's a more recent enhancement, and it kind of made some of the feature of the JavaScript mail lister unnecessary, because if it can be normalized, it would have already been normalized by the mail server, in theory, anyway. It got me thinking about UTF-8 and support for UTF-8 on a number of fronts. So there's also, ongoing discussion about that in FidoNet echoes. It's a good idea. It's a better encoding, and it does, you don't have to switch code pages and such. Anyway, this is just a sync term here and some old Synchronet logo from 1995, it looks like. I don't even know who did that. Anyway, so this is a sync term. And so let me show you a little bit of that problem I was talking about. So I'll just go. This is the old built-in mail reading listing. So you see a couple. Here's one, a message here, and the subject, for example, this is quoted printable, which is a little harder to decode. I can tell just by looking at that that's well, it says UTF-8 right here, but it's also got these sequences are like emojis, F0, 9D, 91. And then the from field as well. And this was not decoded because the mail server was, it was coming into a different mail server, which I didn't update it by this point. Let me see, but I have another one in here. It's a spam. I like spam. Spam's a good test. Oh, here we go, from Joy. And then again, this came through another mail server. That's why it still looks like garbage like that. And if it contained non-ASCII characters, then it would leave what they call encoded words. It would leave them in this format, but mostly they don't. Mostly it's just us-ascii. So here's the test. So this tells me, okay, it's UTF-8 and it's base64 encoded. That's what this B is here. The sequence begins with equals question and ends with question equals. So those are kind of special escaping that MIME came up with, because people don't expect people to type that normally. And then within there's three fields. You have the char set, character set, that's what this is. The encoding, in this case it's base64 encoding, that could either be B or Q. Q is for quoted printable. And then since we know it's base64 encoding, we can take all this, and that last equals actually is part of that. That's actually part of the base64 encoding. And then I'm using just Ubuntu Linux here. Nothing fancy. It's 1804. Anyway, and then if I pipe that string, so I copied that base64 string, and then pipe that to base64-D, and what does it tell me? Oh, Can we schedule an appointment for the weekend? It's all plain us-ascii. There was no need to encode that. So totally worthless. So we don't want that displayed. Like when we read the message here, we want the real subject. And again, the mail server now does that. So that's what I call normalization, where it takes unnecessary encoding of us-ascii and converts it to ASCII. And the mail server just does that automatically. So you don't need any special JavaScript, anything. But, like in the JavaScript lister, that same message there. So you can see here the subject is fine. It got decoded automatically. But I wanted that to happen at a little lower level, so now the mail server does that. Okay. The next sort of big thing, much bigger thing, is UTF-8 support. So that means that recognizing that a terminal supports UTF-8 rather than code page 437, that's the IBM extended ASCII. Also, if it doesn't support UTF-8 translating to a compatible character set, whether that be PETSCII or CP437 or just straight ASCII, whatever. Those are really all the options anyway, but doing those translations. So why would you want that? Well, one thing is if you read a message that has UTF-8 in it, normally you would see garbage, like 2 or 3 garbage letters. This is an example message here. Instead, if I can't translate that to a compatible character or something that's, represents the same thing, then I'm just using an upside down question mark here. And that tells you that it failed to translate it. Because SyncTerm does not support UTF-8 yet. So right now, we know, the BBS knows that the terminal does not support UTF-8. It's just going to send you that funky upside down question mark. And, it's better than garbage. And then if it can be translated, like, for example, this is a translation. So it's supposed to be a Latin capital letter I with an acute, and I just converted it, since code page 437 does have a lowercase I with acute. That's a translation that I'm doing for non-UTF-8. So this message is UTF-8, but the terminal's not, so it's doing its best. And this is also true for MIME encoded messages. So if you get email and they're UTF-8, then it can try to convert that to be compatible with your terminal. Now, the other thing is, what if you actually are using the UTF-8 terminal? So this is just a standard xterm. And I know there's tricks you can do to make it compatible with, BBS characters, code page 437. But I didn't do anything. this is pretty much bone stock. And if you telnet to, say, a version 317B install, or, anything built from CVS up until a couple days ago, it's not pretty. Now, the ANSI is working fine. That's why you get the colorization and everything. But you see all these characters, these question marks in the boxes, that, that's telling us that it couldn't convert those characters, because it doesn't support code page 437. It's expecting UTF-8. And if you log all the way in, this is going to be true of everything you see that's extended ASCII. So like that line there, the avatar over here, the menu. And you do find users that, especially, Linux people, that just, they just telnet using the telnet utility from an xterm. And this isn't too user-friendly. Now, you can go into the settings. I turned off the extended ASCII. So now here you see it says just as ASCII here. Okay. And it'll do a character set translation. It's not pretty, but it's readable. Avatars don't work in this mode. But UTF-8 does support all those same characters, just use different encoding. Right, I'm just hitting a different server here so that this one has UTF-8 enabled. So now you get voila. Again, this is just using an X terminal and the stock telnet client. Now it auto detects UTF-8. There is a little, you can kind of see this light gray background here. It's not supposed to be like that. I'm not sure whose fault that is right now. So that's all converted from code page 437 to UTF-8. The translation table, I mostly got that information from Wikipedia. There was one translation I didn't really agree with, and that's this character 254. That's something I guess that's up for debate, but I do use it a lot, like for the prompts. That's this character right here. And the recommended block really was very big. It filled almost the entire cell. So I found this other block. I think it's FFEF, something like that. That's the Unicode code point. Anyway, other than that, I think all the other characters are the recommended ones from the Wikipedia page on code page 437, CP437. And so this is very usable. Now, again, you're just using the regular Linux, Unix telnet client, so you can't do file transfers. There's no really built-in, I mean, there's a scroll back, but that's really part of the terminal functionality. There's no dialing directory, all those features you might expect like in a BBS client, but at least it looks like a BBS client, mostly. Now, door games are a little tricky. This is a 32-bit version of Legend of the Red Dragon. So, see, that doesn't look too good. And that's because this is a 32-bit version of Legend of the Red Dragon. It's going directly to the socket, and the BBS doesn't get a chance to translate the character sets. And again, you see that gray background issue. But if we use SSH, now it's going to go through an intermediary what we call pass-through socket, and we do get a chance to do the character set translation. There you go. Legend of the Red Dragon graphics in all its glory, directly from an X terminal. Cool, huh? Now, also, when you read a message that has UTF-8, you see now we get the capital letter I with the acute, which is what it's supposed to be. And I think there's some better tests here. So you see these strange foreign characters. These are Unicode code points, and because we're using a UTF-8 compatible terminal and the BBS knows it, it'll just send those sequences exactly as they exist in the message to us. No translation or attempted translation. And then I also have some test files that I was using. So this is what it looks like, full UTF-8. Braille. You get lots of fancy box graphics characters. Now, this is, again, a UTF-8 encoded file, so if I'm using a non-UTF-8 terminal, in this case, xterm, and I display that same file, so it recognizes the .utf8 file extension here. Also, if it begins with the zero width non-breaking space, sequence is 3 bytes, special bytes, also called a byte order mark for UTF-8, although technically there's no byte order. If it begins with that sequence, or if it has the .utf8 file extension, then it knows it's UTF-8. And it'll do its best job to translate to a character set compatible with the terminal. In this case, you get a lot of upside down question marks because it can't convert those characters. Here, this box didn't quite print right because the ellipse gets translated to 3 characters rather than 1 character with 3 dots. So you have the box broken there a bit. Lots of untranslated things, but I did my best for all these line drawing characters. So it's still, they kind of look like boxes still. If you compare that to the real UTF-8, not too bad. And this is all work in progress. There's many thousands of Unicode code points. Most of them are not going to be representable in code page 437, but if there's some close equivalent that we could do, then, it's worth the try. Basically, going through a lot of email messages and seeing what doesn't translate and what could be decoded, or at least transcoded. And if it can be, then I attempt to do that, make things very readable. And again, all of that is built in. I didn't do anything really with JavaScript yet. Some of the functionality in the message lister probably doesn't need to be there now. It's kind of redundant if there's other things happening with the mail server and the internals anyway, as far as translating things. Let me see. Do the avatars. Avatars look pretty good. Again, we still have that issue with the dark, or the light gray, dark black, whatever you want to call that, light black, dark gray blocks, and I don't know what that is. It only seems to happen with the X terminal. Anyway, very usable. So that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to? Let me know.